There's no question that interest rates have gone up over the past few months. In 2022, interest rates really shot up. So it puts us into a position of what do we do at this point? What does the market look like? Is housing going to fall apart? If you like this video, if you like the different topics that I have, please like, subscribe. And if you have any ideas for a video or questions about the videos that I post, please always reach out. I'm always happy to help, and I'm always happy to find new content and to do new videos and different types of videos. Recently, this has been the biggest question about what's going on with housing. Why in the world have interest rates shot up so much, and how is it affecting housing? Well, without going into too much detail, the reason that interest rates have shot up so much is because that is how the Federal Reserve helps to tame inflation. Interest rates go up when the economy is too hot and it's too easy to get money at a lower interest rate. Money is still difficult to get, but the low interest rate is what really makes it easier to get because it's easy to spend and pay back. So when the feds hike the interest rates up, it makes it more expensive to get the money, so you can't pay it back as quickly. And that is really what helps to tame the inflation. And that's one of the main things that the Federal Reserve, who is not a part of the government, but they are actually a part to help regulate the government and the spending in the US. So Federal Reserve hikes up the interest rates, and that helps to cool the economy off. Cooling the economy off is going to help bring inflation down. So that's the whole reason for it. Now, with that said, when you look at the amount of money that you can purchase a property with between last year and this year, interest rates going up means that it's much more expensive for somebody to pay a mortgage on what they're buying last year and what they're buying this year. And so that more expensive monthly rate just on the interest rate has cooled the housing market off. Where does that put us? Once the housing market cools off, where does that put us overall? I'm specifically speaking to Silicon Valley. And one of the things that I want to talk about specifically when I talk about the median home price and when I talk about what is going on in a specific area, I'm going to point to San Jose on this video. And the reason for it is that San Jose tends to kind of be the median home price. With that said, we can easily go higher, we could possibly go lower, but San Jose is really the median home price in Silicon Valley. So that's why I like to use San Jose. And what I would point to is if you look at the study that was done by Redfin did a study on the housing market of San Jose, and the median sales price is $1,180,000. And that's down 8.9% year over year, meaning that last year to this year, it's down 8.9%. So what does that mean? That means that the housing prices have come down in San Jose by 8.9% according to Redfin. How does that affect a buyer? It affects a buyer and a seller. A seller's not going to get necessarily as much as they would have last year. It helps a buyer because now that buyer can purchase a home for maybe less than they would have last year. Now, one thing to pay attention to is that the interest rates have gone up. I think what happens is when we get into a position where interest rates are so low, everybody wants to get married to the interest rate. Well, it's not necessary to get married to the interest rate when you're going to be living in the house. So why not get married to the house and just kind of date the rate, so to speak, right? Interest rates will be coming back down. As a buyer, right now, you have an opportunity to purchase a home that's less expensive on a monthly payment from last year, and you don't have as much competition. Now, this is what you want to look at. So if you're a buyer, you're going into it, and you're thinking, okay, so is the housing market going to fall apart? Like 2008. We always kind of go back to 2008. I absolutely get that, and it makes perfect sense because that's what people remember. That was the biggest pain that we've ever had, quite frankly, other than the Great Depression. But 2008 was the Great Recession, and there's a reason for that. So if you look at 2008 versus now, there's a couple of main criteria that you really want to look at and focus on the differences. Now, I've got some charts here for you as well. So the differences that you'll be looking at is in 2008, the regulations for lending were very, very sloppy and very low. That's one of the main criteria that really added and put us into a position for the 2008 crash. Leading up to 2008, regulations for lending, it was very easy to get a loan. The interest rates were not as low as they were up until last year when they started to hike the rates. Grant that, absolutely. The difference though was that there was a point where if you could sign your name, you could get a loan. And you could get a loan at 100% financing, even 120% financing. So if you wrap your head around that for a second, if you purchase a home for $1 million, you can purchase that home for $1 million and you wouldn't have to put any money down. There might be some closing costs, some closing fees, but you wouldn't have to put any money down. Now, one of the biggest differences is that you do have to put money down. There's different programs, but if you're able to get a program with a lower percentage down, you still have to qualify. That was another piece. Now, this might blow your mind if you haven't heard it before, but at the time, the reason I say that you only had to sign your name, you could get a loan for 120% financing. That was the peak of irresponsibility of lending. If that was the case, you had a loan for 100% or 120% financing. The qualification was literally on paper. So it was possible, and there were programs that the lenders would actually give you a loan for signing the paper, 100% financing, and the qualifications had to tell them what you made. They didn't actually want to see a W-2. They didn't want to see proof from your bank that you had money. They didn't want to see proof that you were making money. So that was the height of the irresponsibility from the banks and people involved in the banking system. That is part of what led to 2008. And that was the lending criteria that I'm talking about. The lending criteria now is if you have 5, 10, 20% down, you're going to have to bring that money as a down payment to the bank. So that percentage is much larger now. Even if it's the 5%, you're still bringing 5% to the table. And if that's the case, now you also have to qualify for it. So now it's necessary to use W-2s. Now it's necessary to prove that you have the money in the bank. Now it's necessary to prove your job. Believe it or not, leading up to 2008, that was not the case. So that is one of the biggest changes between now. That's the lending regulations, and they remain stable from where they were in 2008. It's called the MCIA, and it's the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. And that helps us to see, when we're looking at a chart, that shows us what is the availability of credit. Not how much does credit cost, but the availability. And that chart is right here. We also need to take a look at the foreclosure starts from the past until now. And the foreclosure starts were really ramping up. Those foreclosure starts in the second quarter of 2005 started to ramp up. And by the time they got to the first quarter of 2007, the foreclosure starts were really up and out of control. And they were up close to 300,000. And that means that the foreclosure process is starting. Somebody has already defaulted on their loan and the foreclosure process is starting. Now, and by 2010, they were still out of control. So the difference between that and now, over the course of time, those foreclosure starts have come down a whole lot, and they continue to stay down. So much so that if you look at the peak of the foreclosure starts, they were almost at 600,000 foreclosure starts in the quarter. And that peak was in 2009. And now, if you look at the most recent peak in 2022, the foreclosure starts at the most recent peak of quarter 4 of 2022 was 63,538. So close to about 9.5% now versus then. When you're looking at something like the foreclosure starts, it makes a tremendous difference because that's showing us how many people are in trouble with their mortgage. So we need to pay attention to that and how many people are going to have to get either a short sale or help from the government in some kind of capacity to help pay their mortgage or to help get out of their mortgage. Right now, a lot of people still have plenty of equity. So if they do get into a position where they lose their job or something of that nature and they can't afford the home, they can still sell the home now and they can save the money that they would be able to make on that home, pay the bank back, and still be able to have money left over. Another key piece is the supply of homes for sale today is more limited. So we're still in this position of the prices of homes coming down slightly, but we also have less inventory than we did. If you look at this chart, there was 10.4 months of inventory in 2008. In 2022, there's 2.7 months of inventory. Now, these numbers are based on nationwide. So if you're looking specifically to the Silicon Valley, we tend to be closer to 1.5 months of inventory. Our inventory tends to stay low, and that tends to be how it is. Now, in 2008, our inventory was up, and it was up. It was not up quite at the 10.4 months though, but it was up for sure. So if you're looking across the board, These are three of the main things that you want to look at. And those are going to be, just a quick recap, it's going to be lending regulations. The lending regulations remain stable currently. Remember, that's when anybody can get a loan. All you have to do is fog a mirror almost. Also, the foreclosure starts. That's when a foreclosure begins. So we want to pay attention to that, as well as the supply of homes. So those three main criteria, and now as a buyer, you do have the opportunity to purchase a home, maybe with not as much competition, even though our market is starting to come back up again and buyers are starting to get back into the market. A lot of people are realizing that you can date the rate and you can marry the home. We want to marry the house anyway, right? It makes more sense. That's my 2 cents. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm always here and happy to help. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.